Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'd like to talk to you about Rega's Elex Mk4 integrated amplifier. This is an update to the older elex-r model, and in this version Rega have introduced digital inputs. So the question is, with the introduction of digital circuitry, does the updated amplifier sound as good as its predecessor? The Elex Mk4 is slotted between the cheaper Brio and the more expensive Mk5. Costs $1,875 which is only a bit more than the outgoing Elex-r, but with the inclusion of a built-in DAC. It appears a bit slimmer in profile, the same standard width, and feels just as solid as the older model. The power ratings are similar as well: 70 watts at 8 ohms, 90 watts at 6 ohms, and about 110 watts at 4 ohms. It has 5 analog inputs, one of which is a built-in moving magnet phono-stage. The other 4 inputs are line stages. There is also a recording output and a pre-out for driving external amplifiers or subwoofers. And we now have one coax and one optical. The DAC is based on a Wolfson chipset, and it is capable of 24-bit 94 kilohertz sampling rates. So how does it sound? For digital, I used a Blue Node streamer feeding into the built-in DAC. For analog, I used the Rega P10 fitted with the high output Dynavector 20x2 feeding into the built-in moving magnet phono stage. Speakers used were the Rega Aya and the Acoustic Energy AE309. The listening room is a large basement that has some acoustic treatment, bass straps and some absorption panels. It's a large space. It's a little over 1,000 square feet with high 10-foot ceilings. Let's talk digital first. This track is Flor de Luna from Santana's Moonflower album. Santana's electric guitar sounds tonally clean and actually cleaner than I recall from the Elex-r, which was back then being used with an excellent outboard benchmark DAC. The bass lines sound punchier and more dynamic than I remember it sounding via the Elex-r and the benchmark combination. The older Elex-r nailed the timing, and this successor, the Mk4, is just as good. Next song is called Finding Her from Baz Skaggs from his self-titled album. This is no audiophile recording, but it has some great tunes, great music, and I love all the tracks in this album. Listening via the digital inputs of the amp, I got sucked into the music because how well the Elex reproduced the pace, rhythm, and timing of the audio signal. It does this thing. It makes not so well recorded music sound quite enjoyable. It somehow manages to be forgiving of subpar recordings, and at the same time showcases the splendor of well-mastered recordings. Like this next song by Coldplay. It's called Spies from the Parachute album. The strings sounded crystal clear, a bit more defined than I remember with the Elex-r. The older Elex-r, which was fed by the excellent benchmark DAC, had fine detail, but the Elex-r had the slight warmth, which was very pleasing. But in comparison, I feel like it took away the edge from the transients a bit and from the leading edge of the notes. The Mk4 sounds a bit more open and more dynamic. Okay, let's also talk about a record example. Ahmad Jamal's Genetic Walk album, and the track is called Don't Ask My Neighbors. Using the built-in phono, the bass lines, the expansive soundstage, and the beautiful voices in the chorus sounded gorgeous and well layered, just like I remember it did with the older model. This album is really well recorded and with very little compression, and the Elex's built-in phono renders the space around the instruments really well. There is also good reproduction of the depth perception in the sound stage as well. Now, the impressions of the Mark IV versus the older Elex-r are coming from memory. I didn't have the older model to do an A and B comparison, but the older Elex-r did leave behind a beautiful impression of warmth and full-bodied tone. I feel like the Mark IV improves on the resolution and dynamics a little bit. So while the built-in DAC in the Mark IV is really good, I can tell you that the performance can be enhanced even more if you spring for an outboard DAC like the Chord Mojo 2 to match with the Elex. I was not worried, as some people were, about Rega introducing digital circuitry into their integrated amplifiers. That's because I had the Elex Mk4 in my system for a few weeks. I did a video on that, and I loved the built-in performance of that amp. So I went into the Elex Mk4 with some expectations, and I feel like it offers exceptional performance for the money. I prefer it over the similarly priced Class D Peachtree Nova 300 or the older Nova 220 SE. Both those Peachtree amplifiers have power ratings that are significantly higher, double, even triple the Elex's power rating. But they don't seem to be as engaging to listen to in my experience. The Peachtree amps lacked that tonal color and vibrancy and excitement in the pace of the music when compared to the Elex Mk4. This version of the Elex brings digital convenience along with solid analog performance. Now, I've also read some reviews where they mention that the Elex Mk4 brings 90% of the performance of the Elex Mk5. I don't necessarily agree with that. Yes, the Elex Mk4 is a sweet amplifier for its asking price, but stepping up to the Elex Mk5 will bring you more realism in tone and dynamics. But at $3,350 USD, the Elex Mk5 is also considerably more expensive. Not quite double the price, but it's getting close. The Rega amplifiers, the IO, the Brio, the Elex, the Elex, and the Athos are all on demo at No Noise Hi-Fi in Toledo, Ohio. If you are anywhere in Southeast Michigan or Northwest Ohio, you owe it to yourself to visit No Noise Hi-Fi and listen to these amps yourselves. If you have not watched my video on the Elex Mk5, I will post a video card and I invite you to watch it now. That's it for me, guys. I hope you enjoyed my take on the Elex Mk4. More videos on speakers and amplifiers coming soon. So please subscribe and stay tuned by clicking on the notification bell. Thank you for watching. I'll be seeing you soon.